Hey everyone, it's Alex and welcome back to another video. Today is the 10th year anniversary of this YouTube channel. While I didn't upload my first video for around a year later, today is when I made the channel. Now I usually do something Minecraft related for my anniversaries and milestones, and so today I'd like to add on to that and make this extra special. Minecraft can't really be separated from YouTube. YouTube even celebrated Minecraft as a whole, getting 1 trillion views on the platform. In this video, I'll talk about the community surrounding Minecraft and the communities I joined over the years in this video. I think this will be really fun. The year is... actually, I don't know. I didn't keep detailed records of my life back then. I don't even have like a journal or anything to fall back on. But I do know when it was after. It was after April the 10th, 2013. Why that date? Because that's the date that SkyDoesMinecraft uploaded his first Cops and Robbers video. I was living in a small town, and I was at a friend's house. I don't remember which video it was, but I remember he was watching one of them. I, being the curious kid I was, then asked him what it was. Again, I don't know exactly what he said, but if I think I can conjure up a believable conversation that's more or less the same to the one that we had. Hey, what's that?
It's Sky. He's playing Minecraft with his friends.
What is Minecraft again?
You haven't heard of Minecraft before, eh?
And with that, I was introduced to both YouTube and Minecraft. Now there's one problem with the dates of this, namely that my account was created in 2012. However, I actually think that the creation date of my Google account is tied to that rather than my YouTube account, since when I was checking the creation dates on my Gmail, it said 12/11/12, which if you look at the About section on my YouTube channel, matches the creation date of this YouTube channel. Technically, that means my YouTube anniversary is in April, not December, but it's close enough, and genuinely the only concrete date I have. From there, I got Minecraft Pocket Edition Lite. This is the first version of Minecraft I played. I enjoyed it quite a lot, and it still holds a lot of nostalgia in my mind. Full disclosure, I tried to get a version of it to play, but I couldn't figure it out, so I'll just be using someone else's footage. The closest Java version I can compare this to is Early Alpha. This version is very close to Early Alpha with a few differences, namely the blocks. The stone cutter is required to craft things like cobblestone stairs, and yes, I do mean required. A standard crafting table will not cut it. Pun. This is actually a block I still have in one of my bedrock worlds. It's not really that interesting aside from the fact that you can now have 2 separate stone cutters side by side. The other block was the Nether reactor core. This is kind of expensive, requiring 3 diamonds to craft, but it would spawn a spire of netherrack after the reactor turned into glowing obsidian. Pigmen will spawn and a few nether items will drop on the ground, and that's it. By the way, I downloaded a mod for Java Edition that brings the Nether Reactor Core back on CurseForge. You can find a link to the mod in the description. Wow, I actually just realized that in the description of my first ever video, I talked about how to install a mod, and here I am using complex methods to get 15 seconds of footage using mods. I guess it's come full circle. First off, I'm going to explain why I didn't start with explaining the gameplay of this version. That's because this version is so primitive that it wouldn't include half the content in the game. Needless to say that when I talk about my first Java Edition version, I can actually start talking. Speaking of, my first Minecraft version was 1.6.4, at least in the Java Edition. This update added things like horses, horse armor, hay bales, and coal blocks. This is just modern enough that I feel I can talk about the basic gameplay before I move on to the newer versions and get into the nitty-gritty. Now I want to talk about something else before we get into the game itself. There are 2 versions of Minecraft, Minecraft Java and Minecraft Bedrock Edition. I own both Java and Bedrock Editions on PC. I played both pretty extensively for this review, but to an outside viewer they are very similar. I'll be discussing gameplay changes later, but for now I'll discuss visual changes. Bedrock Edition has its own style that if you're perceptive enough you can spot. It's got a small player model in the corner of the screen when you sprint, different effects for things like explosions, sunrise, sunset, among a few other things. Bedrock Edition has its own look, however I'll be further separating the two by the use of Compliance 32X, a texture pack made to replicate the feel of an old texture pack by Vatic called Faithful. I'll also be using Faithful 1.8 and below for my 1.6.4 footage, since Compliance is for newer versions. Again, you can find both those in the description. I also experimented with the complementary shaders in the newer versions, so they'll be on and off for certain clips. Though sometimes it didn't turn Compliance on, sorry. I do remember a lot of YouTubers using Faithful back in the day, and I figured that I would use Compliance for my Java footage so that not only would the game look better, so that you could tell which game is what game at a glance. I mean, the texture sizes are literally doubled, hard not to notice. Anyway, now let's talk about the first version of Java that I played. I mentioned it was 1.6.4 earlier. 1.6.4 is probably considered early Minecraft by many, though I have nothing to back this up. The crux of Minecraft is, well, mining and crafting, at least in survival mode. Building is the third pillar, but in order to build with anything but dirt, you need to mine and or craft to get what you need. In fact, for all 3 of my playthroughs in this versions, I spent at least the first day mining, either trees or underground materials. From there, I built a base to get started, as everyone should. It doesn't need to be anything fancy to start with. Fancy bases like my hardcore world happen after a lot of work, but they typically start with a basic wooden house, which that particular base still features in its original state. The progression in early Minecraft is quite simple. When you aren't speedrunning, you set up a base, and if you haven't already, get iron tools. From there you can go one of 2 ways: enter the Nether or search for diamonds. You can use as little as 2 buckets to enter the Nether if you do it slowly and methodically like I do, or 1 if you do it the speedrunner way. However, if you do go get diamonds, that opens up a way for enchanting via mining obsidian. If you're confident that you can survive the dangerous Nether, you can brave it with iron gear. If not, go for diamonds. So why don't we talk a little bit about crafting? It's in the name, just like mining after all. You're given a 9x9 crafting grid by placing items in the grid will craft items. Later updates will give you a cheat sheet in the form of the recipe book, but back in my day, you looked up a recipe or experimented with the table until you figured it out yourself. Most of the time things are intuitive, like making a set of boots or a helmet, but sometimes it makes no sense, like TNT. Sure, there's probably some scientific reason it's set up like that, but I can never remember what orientation to put the sand and gunpowder in. This system beats the one found in other games like Terraria because there's a bit more of a puzzle to it, but that's not to bash their systems at all. Both systems are great. The crafting system has many things that you can craft, from tools and armor and whatnot. The tiers for tools go wood, stone, iron, gold somewhere, then diamond, and then later netherite, but that's not in this version yet. Wood can be mined with your fists, and everything else can be mined with its previous tier, so progressing isn't that hard, all things considered, at least when it comes to ores. It's pretty straightforward. One last thing to mention in the overworld before we get to the Nether is the ever so controversial hunger bar. Doing any action will cause the hunger bar to drain, and in order to do things like sprint or, not die, you need to eat. In 1.6 and Bedrock Edition in particular, this is way more punishing than in modern Java versions, and you need to eat almost constantly, though Bedrock isn't as bad in this regard. A lot of people who have played Minecraft Classic back in the day hate this feature along with sprinting, but as a filthy post 1.0 player, I don't really care, and it's fine. It makes for a bit more hectic gameplay when you have to manage the hunger bar. Now, jumping into the old Nether, it's pretty bland, so I'll just talk about the Nether Fortresses, the only structure in the old Nether. Most of what I'll talk about still applies in the later versions. Nether Fortresses are a great place to get a few different things. You need to get 3 main things here. Blaze rods for Eyes of Ender, strength potions, brewing stands, both to craft them and in later versions power them, wither skulls to summon the wither, and netherwort for potion making. Though those can occasionally spawn in bastions post 1.16, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Nether Fortresses have not changed much since they were introduced with the rest of the Nether and the Hunger Bar in update 0.12.1. Pretty much the only chest loot tables have changed, and even then they haven't changed much. Anyway, yeah, I was originally going to go to the Nether with just iron tools in my 1.6.4 run, but I found diamonds before then anyway. Whatever. Speaking of, I found 2 dungeons. Now, these have also barely changed. 1 to 2 chests in a box made of mossy and regular cobblestone with a spawner in the middle. They're either zombie spawners, which are the most common, or skeleton or spider spawners. These can be made into some great farms to get items like arrows, string, or even potatoes and iron. Gotta be the world's slowest iron farm without looting 3, but hey, even if iron golems are deleted from the game, you could still have infinite iron. Regardless, and skipping over the rest of the more in-depth stuff, I'll be saving the breakdown of the Biomes and Dimensions for a segment in their modern incarnations. So my next step was to finish building my base so I was satisfied with it before I went to the end. I needed to grind some more blaze rods, but that wouldn't take long. I also kind of wanted potions, so I had to find another fortress, but before I did that, I went out exploring to find some materials and build new farms. Once I did that, I had a steady stream of food and armor. Now I could search for a new fortress. After dying on the way, forgetting to record myself restocking and continuing to tunnel, I finally find nothing. Great, I guess I wasn't getting potions. Whatever, I went to the desert to kill Endermen, which is the best method I've seen thus far for 1.6 and, pre-1.16. After doing so and getting 12 pearls for safety, I set off for the stronghold. And what an interesting stronghold it was. I had a mineshaft and dungeon cut through the stronghold, and the fact that it spawned so close to my home was much appreciated. 1.6 has humongous oceans in the world generation, and I wanted to release a world download for this world so that people could, just see more of it and experience it for themselves. and so I didn't want to generate too many chunks just in case that's something that people wanted to update to the later versions. Anyway, I found the portal room, but I needed a few more things before I went: diamond armor and ideally good enchantments. I finally decided to branch mine. Pre 1.18, this is the best way to find ore. Mine forward while periodically mining out a few blocks to the left and right. I used this method to get diamond armor, which I'll save for the dragon fight. Then I went back to the desert. My methods including AFKing in a hole until night and then searching for Enderman at night. While I AFK'd, I kept busy by playing today's not sponsor, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. No, but seriously, I got a ton of the missions done that are available right before you meet Aerith in the time I AFK'd. Hey, script rereading Alex here. I wrote that segment before Crisis Core Reunion was announced, and I had no idea it would come out this soon. Like, a lot of people didn't. I just can't believe that out of all my backlog of games, I chose Crisis Core to go through at that exact time, as it was announced like 2 weeks later after writing that bit. Sorry, I just had to add that. That was kind of weird. Oh, but wait. Just at the very end, in doing all the XP grind stuff, I found a fortress with a ton of loot and even a nether wart. I set up a farm. I fully intended to use strength and healing pots, yes, pots, I'm using the old school term, to beat the dragon, with regen potions also being an option. I make a ton of each, so if I fail the dragon fight, it's no big deal. Still, this is really annoying at the end. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful I found this, but I'm upset it took so long. So I had to illustrate my playthrough a bit to not only transit to my thoughts about this version as a whole, but to illustrate the general gameplay that you'll see when you play Minecraft. I think that's important. I probably won't do the same thing for later portions of the script, but I think it's important to illustrate here just how hectic and how many options there are if you want to do a playthrough like I'm doing, where you're not exactly rushing to the end, but you are trying to beat it in a reasonable time frame. As fun as I had at the start of this, there's a real grind to these versions that doesn't exist anymore. I contemplated cheating so many times during the Ender Pearl grind because it was so bad, so slow. Hell, I didn't even record a huge chunk of it. I much prefer the post 1.16 grind since Endermen have become way more common, and you as a player have more ways to deal with them. And even then, you have way more ways to get Ender Pearls besides killing Endermen, but again, I'm getting ahead of myself on that front. All that is without mentioning that enchants used to take all 30 levels when you enchanted an item, making it so much more tedious to actually enchant things. Plus, the grindstone didn't exist, so you couldn't just reroll your enchantments. I'm sorry to say that I didn't particularly enjoy my end of the time with these old versions. There's too much to grind for and too much jank. The game is too slow, to the point where it got tedious towards the end of the experience grind, and I just started using cheats to get 30 levels. It was only for the bow and sword. The rest were done with legit levels. I would have just ground up the levels, but I'd already been doing that for like 2 weeks, and I needed to move on to the later version so I could actually finish this video on time. To put that into perspective, this audio is being recorded on November 14th. I have about a month to edit this entire thing. So I'm glad I stopped there. Now, as much as I dislike my ending gameplay with old Minecraft in comparison to my love for the modern game, that isn't all this review is about. And while the majority of this project will take place in 1.19, I also wanted to talk about the old stuff I used to watch back in the day. Like I said at the start, Minecraft and YouTube are inseparable, so it fits that I talk about both of them. Despite talking about Sky Does Minecraft in the beginning, I never actually watched him. When I was a kid, I was really cared if a YouTuber swore or not. I didn't watch him for that reason. No, instead I can remember 3 specific channels I watched a lot: DanTDM, Stampylonghead, and PopularMMOs. Now, I know the third has some baggage attached to it, but for the sake of this, I'm going to talk about him regardless and avoid the controversy as much as I can. The first one I watched was Stampylonghead. I didn't mention it at the start because I wasn't sure where it fit in the timeline, but I also played the Minecraft Xbox 360 version quite a bit. That also happens to be what Stampy played quite a bit, and I don't remember a ton of my time watching him, but I remember that I actually watched him directly before making my first video to know how I should do things. Stampy's Lovely World was the first world I followed on YouTube, but of course I joined in the middle since he swore a lot at the start. Small spoiler for later, but Stampy reminds me of Mumbo Jumbo and Grian a lot. They have a similar structure and speech patterns, and of course they're all British, so that kind of helps my case. Something I noticed even from the first video was that Stampy had a bit of story in his world with his friends. See, he had a villain in his most popular video named Hit the Target, but he wasn't introduced until part of the way through the video. He gave a world update at the start and then jumped into the wacky story stuff. It's something I kinda appreciated despite not planning to continue to watch his videos. He's nothing if not consistent in all aspects of his content. His characters are simple and kinda kiddie, but he doesn't try and sound like he's appealing to kids, and it's fine for what it is. Stampy also recently released a short saying how happy he is for all the support over the years. He's a really humble guy, even still. I mean, he literally said that he's perfectly happy with people like me leaving his content over the years just because it isn't the same. He fully understands that you can't meet that same nostalgia in the modern day. Again, really humble guy. Really awesome, actually. I also don't remember a lot of time with PopularMMOs, and I didn't watch him a ton because he tended to swear in his videos. At least, that's what I remember. I will say that when I went back to rewatch these guys for this video, I couldn't stand him long enough to finish a single one. I really hated how he and his wife sounded. I felt like I was watching a TV show made for preschoolers in the way that they talked. I'd like to note that since YouTube Mobile doesn't have a sort by oldest tag anymore, I was forced to sort by popular. In all three cases, I watched videos starting from the top of the popular list, so no, I didn't just cherry pick a super old video or a super new one. I sorted by popular to get a good idea and picked from the ones that I would have seen in that time period where I would have watched them. Usually from the 8-year to 6-year mark. Granted, this time I didn't start at the top and later went back and did, and it was a bit more bearable, but it left a bad taste in my mouth that Stampy didn't. On the same note of not remembering, I remember I used to watch CaptainSparklez a lot. I didn't mention him in the paragraph above because, well, I just didn't remember that I used to watch him. I thought that was a more recent thing. I only remember watching the Fallen Kingdom saga as well as Revenge enough to remember my reaction aside from one moment in a single video where he played an adventure map that was like a haunted mansion and he saw redstone on the ground that was supposed to mimic blood and he swore, and that made me turn off the video real quick. Anyway, I do remember liking him a lot and I'm still subscribed and watching his content today. He's got a really calming voice most of the time and he keeps that old style of Minecraft YouTube alive. It's amazing to see that this guy is still working at it and is still making great stuff. Now, someone I do remember watching is DanTDM. I actually bought this tube hero back in the day and I still have it. He made mod reviews of machinimas he called Custom Mod Adventures. I watched a few of both types and he's not as annoying as I would have thought. A running theme of classic British YouTubers for me. Like Stampy, he had consistent characters, this time played by NPCs from a mod. I want to say it's custom NPCs, but I could be wrong. Snapshots from his custom mod adventures even eventually got added to the lab in the building form, thanks to the vault in the basement. A lot of what I said about Stampy applies, so I think I'm finally going to move on to what I have a lot more to talk about. That's right, modern Minecraft. Since Legacy Bedrock Editions are hard to come by for me and I don't own an Xbox, I won't be mentioning it except for maybe a quick mention of Minecraft for Wii U. There's your mention of Minecraft for Wii U. For modern Minecraft, I'm using 4 add-ons for Java Edition. First, as mentioned before, I'm using Compliance 32X for 1.19, so I can keep the Unity loop for Java. Next, I'll be using Default Dark by Nebula on Planet Minecraft. This just makes the UI look slightly darker than normal, and I prefer it. I'll also be using Optifine this time. It helps performance and allows for a zoom that I think is nice and sometimes funny. All this will be linked in the description alongside the original Faithful by Vatic. I did update my compliance once since I downloaded the June version the day it went up, and I wanted the newest version after a month in case there were mistakes, so if there's a difference, that's why. I'll get into the version differences in a bit. For now, let's focus on both worlds that end up making the modern Minecraft section. Though I will note that in the spirit of Bedrock Edition being the version of the cross-platform and multiplayer between players, I had my girlfriend join me early on in the version. In both worlds, there are quite a few changes in the overworld since between 1.6 and 1.19. For one, the ocean was majorly overhauled, and that's why I didn't explore much past the island on the 1.6 world, as I mentioned before. They added kelp, shipwrecks, and other small structures, buried treasure, aquatic zombies called drowned, dolphin, visible fish, and of course ocean monuments complete with guardians and new blocks. They also introduced a faster swimming method and actually good boats. All of these things add a lot to the game and make oceans actually good. Shipwrecks themselves can give decent loot. There are 3 different types of chests in shipwrecks: supply, treasure, and map chests. Supply chests are things like food, items, moss, bamboo, TNT, and other armor, which means you don't have to find jungles and such for certain materials. The treasure chests contain iron and gold nuggets, as well as ingots for both, lapis, emeralds, bottles of enchanting, and even diamonds, which are all good for obvious reasons. Finally, map chests contain things like paper, clocks, and compasses. but they also have a 100% chance to spawn with a buried treasure map. Those buried treasures can contain things from salmon to diamonds to water-breathing potions, but always contain a heart of the sea, which can make a conduit, which I'll get into later. These maps can also be found in underwater ruins alongside various less than loot. I'll get into ocean monuments a bit later, but just from that, I'm sure that you can tell that Mojang has significantly upgraded the game over time. That's not to mention the different ocean biomes like warm oceans or coral reefs. Most parts of the game are at least somewhat close in complexity in comparison to the ocean, even if they haven't been touched up in a while thanks to other structures, some classic and some not. But again, I'll get back to that later, after we focus on some of the more required parts of the game. You know, like the combat system, for instance. One of the biggest gameplay changes between Minecraft Java Edition and Minecraft Bedrock Edition is the combat. In Java Edition, every tool and weapon has a cooldown between swings. However, axes have more damage than swords. In Java Edition, you could put multiple things in your offhand, pretty much anything. But in Bedrock Edition, you could only put in a few items, like the Totem of Undying and the shield. The shield wasn't in older versions of Minecraft, neither was the offhands. That was introduced in 1.9, the combat update, which also introduced the cooldown between swings. This is a controversial change in the Minecraft community, however I think it was a good change. It adds a lot more depth to the combat. A lot of servers nowadays, though, continue to use 1.8 for its combat, which I understand. Both ways are fun. Though I will say that the offhand of the newer versions adds quite a bit more depth that wasn't in 1.8, and I tend to prefer it that way. That's why I say it's a good change. Though I must add that the reason why Bedrock Edition is like this is because that's how Minecraft was before. They wanted to keep a more familiar style for Bedrock because of, well, how controversial the changes in Java were. Hence why a lot of servers still use 1.8 for their combat. It's a good thing we're playing on 1.19 because I get to talk about the new cave generation. Caves got a major overhaul in 1.18 and added new things to find alongside with updating mine shafts and adding new structures in 1.17 and 1.18. In 1.18 specifically, they increased the build height from Y256 to Y319 and made the lower limit Y-64. As you can probably see in footage, old caves were more like tunnels with few exceptions. In fact, the prevailing strategy was to place torches on the right walls as to not get lost. That does not work in the main caves anymore. Now you'd better off doing what Luke TheNotable said and have torches face home on a pillar or a ledge. Furthermore, the new caves can spawn in lush caves covered in moss and glowberries or flooded with water, creating more in-depth, when not intended, cave systems within the world. Now at this point we need to talk about the modern Nether. Full transparency here, when I was recording the Nether footage, I got extremely mad at the game and cheated death. I was having a bad day already and I didn't really want to deal with losing everything. Now yes, I did undo it. I lost everything and it needed to stay that way, but I wanted to come out and say it for the sake of transparency. Promise you, it never happened again. I didn't think anybody would notice, but I wanted to be honest about it since it's so easy to be dishonest here on YouTube with things like this. Regardless, and in spite of what I just said, the modern Nether is way better than any Nether in the past. There's so much new to do here. You can trade gold ingots with piglins to get various items from obsidian to fire resistance potions and even ender pearls. And on top of that, there are multiple biomes with multiple gimmicks, Easter eggs, and new blocks. The classic Nether remains in the wastes, while the warped and crimson forests provide crucial wood blocks in the Nether. And with Blackstone generating the Nether now, it's very possible to survive in the Nether with nothing. Basalt deltas also offer a nice change of pace with lots of Blackstone, magma, and of course basalt, though they do get pretty annoying in certain aspects. On the topic of the Nether biomes, I'll get more in-depth into them later on. This is just a general overview. On the topic of structures, I'll talk about the more notable ones at the end. There's a lot and I feel it's important to compare them. That's also when I'll talk about the biomes more in depth. For now, let's focus on progression. Progression has changed massively since 2013. The game is so much more fast-paced. In both cases, my first goals were to get food and to get mining, and so I needed wood. Thankfully in both, as I probably showed, I started next to an ocean. I used the ocean to get some food and some nearby trees to get wood before finding a decent place to mine. In Bedrock, I wanted a more or less traditional home base. Since this is a review, I should probably at least show what one would look like. However, I wanted something a bit more unique for Java Edition that I could use to show off the shaders I used on occasion. So I based my base on Pacifilog Town from Pokemon, specifically Pokemon Emerald, Pokemon Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, that sort of thing. That last part was significantly easier than I would be otherwise because I could build on the kelp. From there, the process is about the same to get to the Nether as it was at 1.6, just with more items and ways to get those items. In Java Edition, I immediately set out for Ocean Treasure, finding a shipwreck, giving me a pretty good head start, whereas in Bedrock I focused on getting the mine started. This is in line with the more traditional progression, and Java Edition be more focused on the weird things. In both cases, my goal was to get a decent and steady supply of resources. and in both cases I started a farm. But unlike in 1.6, a farm isn't just for food, but also for villagers. Now yes, villagers also existed in 1.6, and you could trade crops with them, but in 1.19, villagers are a huge part of the progression, or they can be, which is why I do my best to protect them from any harm. In Java Edition though, once I had a base set up, or at least somewhat set up, I actually went mining. And when I did, I found a mine shaft. These, like dungeons, haven't changed much. They're long tunnels with rails. These fence-like structures, and occasionally minecart chests with loot. It's not typically good loot, but it's loot. What's nice is that you can find seeds that you would normally have to either go to villages or other biomes for. You can find melon and beetroot and pumpkin seeds, saving you a trip to a jungle or a village. There's also usually cobwebs and cave spiders around, which... yeah, just ask any Minecraft player what they think of those, especially the cave spider spawners. I had different goals with these playthroughs, so I won't give it play-by-play, especially as I played the majority of my Bedrock one with my girlfriend via crossplay. She played from her Switch, and I played from my 1983 Motorola Dynatec 8000X, or my PC, whichever one you think is more believable. That's actually our first major difference beside the graphics. Bedrock Edition is more focused on cross-platform play and monetization in comparison to Java Edition. It has the marketplace, where you can purchase mine coins to get things like skins, adventure maps, texture packs, all that. I won't get into this because it's a surprisingly controversial topic, but I will say that you can get the majority of these things for free on Java Edition. Cross-platform play on Bedrock Edition is surprisingly robust. You can play on Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, mobile, and PC with anyone on those platforms. While the fact that the game has to run on mobile holds the game back in a few ways, namely being the fact that all the features need to work on mobile, hence why the bundle is still delayed, and the Bedrock shields being trash, I'll gladly take this drawback if it means more people can play the game. Plus, the fact that the game runs on C++ framework to enable that crossplay means that performance on PC is leaps and bounds better than unmodded Java Edition on average. Now that we have a few version differences and the overall progression out of the way, why don't we talk about the Nether progression? And to do that, we have to do a bit more of a breakdown. The old Nether was home to 3 mobs and you weren't inside fortresses: zombie pigmen, magma creams, and ghasts. Pigmen are still here, but in the form of piglins, zombified and not. I prefer the term pigmen, but I'll call them piglins for this review. Zombie piglins are like wolves in the overworld. They're docile until you attack one, accidentally or not. Once you do though, any zombified piglins in the area will attack you on sight. Ghasts are annoying cubes of pain. They scream and fire fireballs which explode on contact with a player or a surface, and magma creams are lava-themed slimes. They hop around and divide when killed. Those 3 have remained the same throughout the years, but now they only spawn in certain biomes. Piglins in the wastes, or the biome like the old Nether, ghasts in the Soul Sand Valley and rarely elsewhere, and magma creams in the Basalt Delta and rarely elsewhere. Those 3 mobs are still present, as is the quartz from the old Nether and the fortresses, but now the Nether has been revamped elsewhere. The overworld has a lot of variety, yes, with cold biomes like ice spikes, tundras, and snowy taigas, warm biomes like savannas and badlands, and temperate biomes like plains and most forests and swamps, all of which containing mobs, structures, and terrain, and different materials, all different from each other. It's almost always had this variety, while the Nether has lacked this. But now the 2 are about even. Desert temples and villages can stack up to the great loot within bastions and ruined portals, even though the latter also spawns in the overworld. The Nether also has a vast amount of structures, and this is way more structure dense than the overworld. I was really general about the overworld thus far, and I plan to get into that, but I feel I should go over the Nether first, and I think it'll help me illustrate my final point about the biomes and dimensions overall. The first 2 biomes I'd like to discuss are the Nether Forests. The Crimson Forest seems to be the most common to me, and is a biome made of these giant red mushrooms. You can actually use these stems as logs, though they're like their warped counterparts, they nor their planks can be smelted. Here though, you'll find both regular and zombified piglins alongside hoglins. Regular piglins can be traded with using gold ingots. They will attack you if you aren't wearing any gold armor, or if you attack or kill one. They will also attack you if you mine some of the nether gold ore around them. Nether gold ore, by the way, is a new ore that drops gold nuggets when mined and a gold ingot when smelted. Hoglins are nether pigs that attack on sight but run away at low health. They also knock you into the air and pack a nasty punch. Piglins drop nothing but their equipment that they use on rare occasions, but hoglins drop pork chops and leather. Now in contrast, wart forests are blue and are home to the similar nether stems. Wart forests can only spawn endermen, making them great locations to farm ender pearls. Something these biomes have in common besides their name is that striders can spawn in them as long as there's an area of lava big enough to support them. Put a saddle on the strider with a wart fungus on a stick and you can cross the lava with ease. I mentioned the nether wastes earlier, and they're essentially the old nether, large outcroppings of land, whether that be islands or hills, filled with nothing but netherrack and not the nylium of the forests. Regular red and brown mushrooms may occasionally spawn alongside the usual nether ores. Soul Sand Valleys replace the random patches of soul sand in the old nether. They're home to soul sand, which can be used to grow nether wart, obviously, and make the wither, as well as making bow elevators. They're also home to soul soil, which is a building block best used for soul speed highways, which is an enchantment that you can get from trading with piglins. It essentially makes you move faster on soul sand. Regular skeletons and ghast spawn here, as do nether fossils, a great way to get bone meal. Bastions, nether fortresses, and ruined portals can all be generated in these biomes. I've already gone over the fortresses, so let's start with the more simple one, ruined portals. These are incomplete nether portals surrounded by stone brick, magma blocks, and netherrack. They usually contain a loot chest. Those chests contain gold items, iron nuggets, and sometimes even flint and steel and obsidian. These also spawn in the overworld, like I mentioned before. Bastions are expansive fortresses, not like the nether ones, that can contain some insane loot, but also some insane danger. Bastions contain lots of lava and piglins, as well as the piglin brutes, which can deal up to 15 damage or 7.5 hearts in hard mode. And keep in mind, you only have 10 hearts. Some bastions can even have magma cube spawners, but only the treasure bastion types. Speaking of bastion types, there are 3. Bridge bastions feature bridges. Go figure. They often have gold monuments and are pretty expansive. Loot and bastions are typically good. Enchanted tools, netherite scrap, gold, sometimes trash items, and occasionally things like lodestones. Hoglin stables are stables for hoglins, pretty self-explanatory. I will note that piglins and hoglins usually attack each other, but these don't here. Stables typically have the worst loot, but treasure bastions have by far the best. Enchanted diamond gear, tons of iron and gold, occasional god apples, and netherite ingots. Treasure bastions are super dangerous, with the treasure room having magma cube spawners on top of a ton of piglins. Overall, bastions are a great addition to the nether, and arguably, they're the best addition. They're certainly my favorite. The only biome where bastions don't spawn are basalt deltas. They're the only bad nether biome. Now, if a biome can be both a nice change of pace and bad, you know that the new nether's pretty good. Basalt and blackstone, nether cobblestone equivalent, have a high blast resistance, making mining for netherite in this biome a pain. I'll get back to netherite mining in just a sec, but let me just say that the surface of basalt deltas isn't much better. Basalt, magma, and magma cubes, as well as lava. Lots of lava, obviously. It's awful to traverse, and so there's not really good loot since bastions don't spawn. As for netherite mining, basically, a block called Ancient Debris spawns underground. Smelt it to get netherite scrap, and craft 4 of the scrap together with 4 gold ingots to get netherite ingot. Combine it with diamond gear to upgrade the item into netherite gear. Netherite is ridiculously strong gear. It's worth the mining process, the long, arduous mining process. Ancient debris spawns in small clusters, and the best method is to craft beds and blow them up as I show in the footage. Rinse and repeat until you find enough. This is why basalt deltas are so annoying to go through. Beds get you nowhere. All this happens within one dimension and usually very close to each other. It's a lot of interlocking parts, and that's part of what makes Minecraft so special, but I will talk about that at the very end of this whole modern Minecraft section. Moving away from the nether, if you thought that variety was something else in comparison to what we saw of the overworld of 1.6, well, the overworld wants to have a word with you again. Now, I won't go over every structure and landscape like I did in the nether, or we'll be here until 2032. I'll be covering the following biomes and structures associated with them: plains, forests, dark oak forests, deserts, taigas, mountains, mushroom biomes, and oceans. And of course, I'll go over the caves one more time in a bit more depth. I already talked about oceans, so let's just cover the monuments real quick. These are large prismarine structures that house Elder Guardians and gold. Now, when these were added back in 1.8, the gold was worth it, but with the modern nether, the real reason that you come to these is for building blocks and guardian farms. Oh, and sponges. They actually work in modern Minecraft. At least you can get a map to one from villagers, which we'll cover later. Mushroom biomes tend to be related to oceans, and since they're typically found as islands, that makes sense. These biomes are home to mycelium and mushrooms, with the trees being replaced by big mushrooms. No mobs except for the mushrooms can spawn here, even at night or in caves. Mushrooms themselves are very useful, being an infinite food source if you milk them with a bowl in your hand. Just like regular cows though, they give you milk with a bucket, which clears status effects. Best part is that like regular cows, they can breed with wheat, meaning they're ridiculously easy to get more of. No structures spawn in here besides maybe the shipwrecks and ruined portals either. Plains and forests are pretty basic, as are taigas and deserts, but that gives me an excuse to talk about villages. Villages have been in the game for a very long time, but they got an overhaul in 1.14. I actually did a video on this back in the day. Villagers can contain various buildings with loot varying from crap to cool. Blacksmiths typically have the best loot, but they don't always spawn. Village loot and building styles vary based on the biome, but unless it's the special abandoned village variant, villagers will spawn. Before you can get into trading though, you probably want to build them all a place to stay. Villages are not fortified, and even if you're on easy mode, villagers are stupid enough that they'll all die. Now you can fortify those villages, but you're better off building your own, or building a place for them all to live and trade like I did. In this playthrough I did a more standard setup, but in my hardcore world I built villager condos and communes. I don't know, I'd rather them be happy, even if they are just ones and zeros. Goddamn Pokemon making me care about video game characters' feelings. Once you have an area prepped, you have two real options. I say real because you obviously have more, this is Minecraft, but these two are the most viable. You can use boats or minecarts. Boats are, well, boats. They cross water well and they can cross land horribly, but they do still cross land. Provided you're moving across a flat space, you can still move villagers this way, as boats can hold 2 passengers. Minecarts only hold 1 and require you to build a railway system, but this is by far the easiest way to transport villagers. And that's what I did for this time, for the most part at least. Minecarts and boats are good substitutes for going on foot, as both are faster than sprinting or sprint jumping. Both are situational, and you know what, that's fine. Villagers use emeralds to trade for items, and they're really fun to work with in a Minecraft world. They're a great way to get infinite amounts of various resources, since they only need an accessible workstation in order to restock their trades. Librarians are good for infinite enchanted books and valuable enchanting items. The books they can have are like mending, which will fix your tools when you get experience orbs. However, they can also carry items like bookshelves, name tags, and glass. Fletchers are the same for bows and arrows as well as flint, but they are an easy source of emeralds with their stick trades. Farmers are good in that regard too, but offer golden carrots and regular apples. Fishermen are pretty basic and allow for infinite charcoal, so that's cool. Leather workers are near useless. Stonemasons are used for buying building materials, and cartographers sell you the maps for the ocean monuments and woodland mansions, which we'll talk about the mansions in a bit. Now for the 3 villager types that people care the most about besides maybe librarians. Clerics will buy rotten flesh, literal trash, for emeralds. They also offer lapis, redstone, glowstone, and bottles of enchanting, which combined with the XP you get from trading is a great method to get XP to fix those mending tools. Probably the best trade clerics have though is the ender pearl trade. This means if you don't have a warp forest around you can just trade the cleric for pearls and get blaze rods normally. It's super easy to find the dragon now. Toolsmiths, armors, and weaponsmiths are good because they sell diamond gear, enough said. With villagers also comes pillagers, and with villages comes pillager outposts. These outposts are home to the titular pillagers and are crucial for starting raids. In raids, pillagers and illagers of all types attack your village. If they kill the villagers, they win. If you kill all of them, you win. You can get tons of emeralds, iron axes, crossbows, and even totems of undying, which, when held in your offhand, will allow you to cheat death. These are dropped by the standard illagers and pillagers, with drops from witches like sugar, bottles, sticks, and saddles from ravagers. Ravagers in of themselves are exclusive to raids. There's biggest trucks and hit like them too. These raids are tough but lucrative, with more mobs spawning with enchanted gear using higher bad omen levels, and the effect usually starts the raid from you getting a kill on a pillager captain. Aside from all this, the only other structure worth mentioning here is the Desert Temple. It's a pyramid-like structure that contains a treasure room guarded by a TNT trap. It is very much a noob trap, but the loot is worth going for, most of the time. These biomes are great to build houses in or go caving in due to the abundance of either flat space or trees. Before I move on, I want to expand on the caves. The old caves were tunnels where you could find ore, but now they're closer to caverns that you would find in the real world. The ore rarity is about the same, but now the iron and coal are about equal in distribution. Regardless of the version, however, you still go from wood, stone, iron, gold, to diamond, and now netherite. I will say that the lush caves now add quite a bit of progression to the underground exploration. Moss is a great block, and now it's possible to get wood even in caves without a mineshaft thanks to the azalea blocks. Axolotls are adorable additions that can be useful when raiding ocean monuments too, especially alongside conduits. The conduit is pretty simple. You set up a prismarine structure, and it gives you a conduit power effect, which enhances your abilities while in the water. Combine this with axolotls, and there's nothing that you can't do in the water. Caving has never been more fun or engaging as it is now, and I find myself wanting to explore caves, not necessarily needing to, something that I didn't used to do past the few days in the world where I had found most of the caves around my spawn, so it wasn't very interesting. They're also very impressive now, especially now that the world can go into the negatives as of 1.18. Dark oak forests are not only home to the best wood type in the game in my opinion, but are also rarely home to woodland mansions. Before we had raids, this is how we got our totems of undying. This is the closest thing besides the stronghold and the ocean monument in Minecraft that you have to your standard dungeon in an RPG game. Several floors with occasional loot and tons of mobs, including pillagers. These places are cool, and as people have shown and said, it connects to what little lore Minecraft has. This is the other structure that you can buy the map to, but be prepared to travel hundreds if not thousands of blocks to find one. It's something I didn't bother with in any of my YouTube worlds. You know, until editing, that is. Also, I should mention, I had a few worlds for this video. Obviously the main 3 that you'll see the footage from for the most part, but I also had 2 other bedrock worlds, one that was a super flat and one that was not, that was meant to just show off a few mechanics that I didn't have a good way to record otherwise. There'll be links in the description for world downloads for the 3 main worlds. The bedrock one might take a bit to get up after the video's up, but it will be up eventually, I promise. Finally, the new mountains in 1.18 are amazing. They don't have a lot to break down. No, they do have something amazing. They're pretty. I like them. Oh, okay, but seriously, they are pretty breathtaking. They're home to goats, which are just kind of silly mobs with silly goat horn mechanics and silly noises. They're silly. I love them. They also have a higher chance to spawn the new ancient cities under them. The mountains, I mean. Now, I never actually explored an ancient city before this video, so maybe I should just cut together a montage of my reactions of doing so. Alright, so, I immediately stopped playing as soon as I loaded into this area, or rather the chunks loaded in for this area, because, well, I found one. A real one. A FNAF reference for all those of you who care. So what we're going to do, we're going to mine this area out. Alright, yeah, I think that's good enough. Might even be a bit overkill, but oh well. Alright, so there's going to be no mob spawning down here. So we'll set our spawn, and I just realized, why don't we leave, like, that much here for us, if, in the event that we die. Alright. This is gonna be hell. The game lagged there. I was not. There's a chest. Uh-oh. That was not good. Gonna have to be very careful. The music might be a bit too loud. Let's just... Alright, this is very scary, for one. For two... Oh god. I did not realize that opening chests impacted this, like, whatsoever. Okay. Jesus Christ. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this. Any unnecessary wool that we used, we will take back. This music is totally killing the mood, so we're just going to turn it off. Oh, jeez. Maybe that was a bad idea. Oh, jeez. Okay. I'm in full gear, and I'm terrified. I don't know if going down that ladder is a good idea or not. No. The answer is no. That's not a good idea. Great. We're going to do this very carefully. We're going to do this very quietly. Maybe I should have brought my elytra with me. Another chest over there? Yeah. There's one over there. Great. Yeah, there's the chest that I saw earlier. If I do this, get its cushions from all angles, literally all angles. There we go. All right. There's another shrieker over there. I heard somewhere that if you break the shriekers, that it, like, the warden, like, summons immediately. And honestly, I'd rather not deal with that, thanks. There's gotta be, there's more chests. I know there's more chests, but I don't know if I want to go after them. I am very scared. Looks like these sensors are fairly harmless. I say fairly. Oh, wow, okay. It is not harmless in the slightest. We got shriekers. At least thanks to the lava, I have a quick, essentially like, quick guide to show where I came from. Oh my god. Oh my god. You seeing this? That scared me. Oh. Here's what we're gonna do. Gonna block this off. I don't know if the warden's here or not. I can't tell. I think that's the second time. Okay, alright, I'm out of here. I don't know if they can see me. I sincerely hope it can't. Says warden sniffs, I hope it can't smell sweat. I think, yep, yeah, okay. I know, I'm such a baby. Jesus. Oh, that scared the crap out of me. Never again. Never again. Never ever again. No. Before we get back to the video, first of all, this is recorded at like 3 in the morning, so I have every right to be scared. Second, I have like a ton more footage. I recorded this for like an hour and a half because I did a ton in the ancient cities. I'll probably be releasing the extended cut, but this is already long enough for a detour. So yeah, I just figured I'd mention that. And that's the overworld. Why I broke down the Nether first is so I could more easily contrast them. Nether seems more dangerous, and in many ways it is, but the overworld can be just as dangerous, especially in hard mode. Creepers, angry iron golems, the warden, and several universal constants of hunger and fall damage all come together to make something that's surprisingly dangerous. The overworld doesn't seem as dangerous, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. There's such a sharp contrast here that I couldn't possibly talk about it, and I think that's the beauty of Minecraft. There's so many interlocking parts that work so well together that makes for a wonderful game that's fun to analyze. If not from a gameplay perspective like I am here, or from a lore perspective like Matt, Pat, and Weefies does. Speaking of those two, I'm going to save the end for the end. I want to go over the bosses when I go over the end, and I think what I want to say about the modern community will help strengthen my point about the bosses. The modern community is something else. With the mere presence of the fanbase of the Green Man and his speedruns, I can't agree that the community is just as quaint as nice as it used to be. Do I hate Dream? No. Do I hate his fans? Also no. But his impact on the community has been undeniable, and so as much as people will probably hate it, I have to mention him here. But I don't watch Dream or any of those other YouTubers associated with him. At least, not since one passed away. You probably saw at the beginning of this video, but this year Technoblade, also called Alex, died from a long-fought battle with cancer. I did bring Techno up, not just to mourn his loss, but to show the inverse of what I just mentioned. While we may disagree at times, while we may have our own sub-communities, when it really matters, the Minecraft community, despite its size, can mostly rally together and join a common cause, like what Hypixel did for Technoblade. Hell, I contributed to that book that they were going to send. His content was great, and it was something I tended to watch when it came out before his passing. On a much lighter note, I want to go over a few channels that I only started to watch in the most recent years, and by that I mean posts like 1.10 or so. The first group I'd like to mention are the members of Hermitcraft. I tend to gravitate towards Grian's and Mumbo Jumbo's content. Grian is a master at building, and Mumbo is a redstone genius. They're just two British dudes just having fun playing the game like they want to. It's really fun to watch casually. To complete the trifecta, I also watch Fundy on occasion. He isn't associated with Grian or Mumbo, but he's a master of the modding side of Minecraft. He makes some really cool difficulty mods and data packs and shows them off to the world and allows us to try them. He's always proud of his work he does, clearly, and the enthusiasm is hard not to get behind. I guess you can count Failboat, but he makes more variety content than Minecraft content, though that's how he got his start. He's got really cool and fast editing style that flows really well, and he's just funny, enough said. I mentioned a guy named Powliner at Stardisk a few times. He's got an absolutely destroyed sense of humor like I do, and he covers a pretty cool game mode in Hypixel Skyblock, something I'll cover in a bit. TheMisterEpic is pretty epic. He covers a lot of stuff relating to Minecraft's past, sort of like a Minecraft historian. It's kind of funny to think that that type of content would actually be possible. Ooh, I can't go any further without talking about the oldest anarchy server in Minecraft, and the guy who started that meme. FitMC is another Minecraft historian, but focused on a server, 2B2T, or 2 Builders 2 Tools. His style is very laid back and very relaxing just to listen to while writing scripts. Heck, I wrote my entire initial draft of the 2021 Delibird video while listening to him. Soundsy one is similar to him, but I mostly watch his videos where he deliberately goes to expressly pay to win Minecraft servers and dupes to ruin their economy. Quick little rapid fire, 100 Days content YouTubers that I like to watch is TheNotable and I guess Jaron. Jaron makes different stuff too. He makes some other challenges and stuff, but that's what got him really popular recently was his 100 Days on a super flat without any structures. For more short form content, I watch Block Facts and his shorts about blocks every now and again. And I do continue to watch Jaron's content, both his short form and his long form content, like I mentioned. Blackfax often collaborates with Skip the Tutorial, a Nintendo YouTuber turned Minecraft YouTuber. I also watch his shorts on occasion and long form content. I mentioned a lot of names here, but that's because I've branched out a ton in the year since 1.6. I watch a lot more than Minecraft now. I subscribe to a lot of music channels, and I grew up. I aged 10 plus years in that time. My parents stopped looking over my shoulder as much. My taste refined, and I learned to recognize good content. I learned to watch more than 3 people. There was a lot that happened at that time. I went to school, I learned to drive, I played other games, I made content, I met people, I made friends, I got jobs. I learned what life is about, and I'm working on realizing my long-term goals in life. And yet, Minecraft has persisted in my life through it all. This game has never faded. It's always been supported by Mojang and Microsoft, for better or for worse, and I love that. You know, I think it's just best that I show you. I'm going to splice together some clips of Ico and me, formerly known as Pentopper, and I talking about the game and reminiscing about the game back in August of 2021. Just listen to the way that we talk about it.
Oh, man, at night, I know you're looking at the cave and you're feeling kind of brave. Go to bed, you'll be alright. Don't mind at night. I've
never once listened to that song.
Really?
Well, I mean, I've listened to it, but I've never once obeyed what the song has been telling me not to mine at night.
Oh, I have. When I first played Minecraft.
You're also a weenie.
When I was first playing Minecraft as a little child, I think it was 2014 or 2015. Anyway, I was little, like when the Xbox 360 was the hot thing.
Oh my God, I remember those days. Jesus.
Yeah, when that was like the hot thing, along with the PS3.
Oh well, the PS3 sucked in the US because it was like $700.
Yeah, we have one.
I do too.
But anyways, damn it, my pickaxe broke. I always was scared when I first played Minecraft. Like, I was playing Minecraft, like, before horses were a thing on the Xbox. That's how old...
Before quartz was a thing?
Horses.
Oh, I was playing that too, like... I loved that. That was, like, the version of Minecraft back in the day. Like, oh, yeah. Man, the nostalgia's real, dude.
But I always played it on peaceful, and even then, I would scream every time I don't have a bed in the night, and I would just cry. And,
I found diamonds!
And I would rush to get... I would rush to get get a bed and whatnot, and to make sure I always go to bed. The game.
Why?
I don't know. I just didn't like it. I was scared of a monster coming. And actually, I think it was because you know about the whole Herobrine thing, right?
Yeah, I used to believe that it was real.
Yeah, so did I. That was also another thing. I remember like hearing so many made up story. Well, I mean. Herobrine is made, but it's just like he'll like come and kill you and blah 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 blah. I just remember when that was like the Slender Man ghost story basically, or Bloody Mary. That was the Bloody Mary.
Yeah, it was. I remember seeing videos of people just kind of messing around in Minecraft Pocket Edition. Back when the Nether Reactor Core was a thing. Anybody remember that? Anybody remember the Nether Reactor Core?
Back in my day, we had
Back in my days, the Nether Reactor Core was the only thing we had in the Nether, and we liked it.
In my
None of
day,
this
we didn't even have hunger.
Oh, no hunger! Oh, that was such a... Oh, my God. Oh... Food didn't used to stack.
My God! Recently, I watched Grian, and he did like that series where it was like they were playing Minecraft on the Minecraft server. However, it's like it started with the oldest generation, and after every few episodes, it would go to the next update slowly.
I saw
just
that.
watching it, I'm like, oh gosh, it's so different now.
Oh yeah, like the game is totally different, and some of you youngins in the audience probably won't remember a lot of this stuff, or won't even know that it exists, and that's kind of the magic of the game, you know. It's
and like I guess you could go back to play it, but you won't. I don't think you'd experience like the real magic like it was when it first came out, and that's all it was.
Yeah, like you have the context of this is Minecraft, this is the biggest game. Back in the day, we knew it was big, but we didn't realize it was going to last this long.
Well, yeah, and to be honest, Minecraft died for a good while. When I was like between like 3rd grade and I think around like 7th grade, no one was into it, and they were saying it basically like insulting it, saying it sucked and whatnot.
Oh yeah, I remember like being ashamed that I played it, and I didn't tell anybody that I played it. And then, and now I just kind of Now I don't have to hide it because people realize that Minecraft isn't...
And then...
that its reputation precedes it. Sorry, go ahead.
It became a big hit again. Yeah, then now it's like a big hit again. It's just like so weird to see that.
And that's how internet fame works, you know? It's like...
That's...
Man, I could go on and on about this for hours on end. It's just...
No. And to be honest, I am looking forward to the Caves update. It's going to come in 2 parts, I believe, because of how big it is.
Do you remember when redstone wasn't a thing? Like...
My God. Remember how we originally had to propel the carts?
Yeah, you just had to press W or forward on Pocket Edition.
No. There was another way. I can't remember what it's called. You make a ring with it.
Yeah, you would have to...
With carts,
you would have...
spin them really fast. You have to time it so then you put one cart on the opposite rail and it just zoom you.
Yeah, that was another way. That was the other way. I was thinking like the vanilla way instead of like the exploitative way. Remember when sprinting wasn't even a thing? It was so slow.
I cried every time. Remember when... Actually, this wasn't too long, but I don't know. Remember when pumpkins were just the jack-o'-lantern?
Yeah, they were just the jack-o'-lantern design. I kind of am mad that they changed that.
I mean, I understand why. Like, if people were mad because of a texture issue, they could have just easily got a texture or remade the texture of the pumpkin and just took the face off.
I mean, there are texture packs that are just the old texture for the newer versions, and they make the new textures look like the older versions. But you know, that's just not the same. You know,
not the same as the classics.
The nostalgia's real about this game, dude. Like, I can't even describe it.
Remember when Purpur blocks first came out?
Oh, I was stoked. I was like, hey, it's a cool looking block.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, it looks so cool and it's purple.
The fact that we can just reminisce about all these changes, it's just like, it shows that this game has life beyond what we imagined, you know? Man.
Definitely makes for a great getaway. And I see some really cool role plays with Minecraft.
We talked about it in the same way that people talk about their time in high school or their time on a nice vacation. And honestly, with how crappy high school was for me for my mental health, I feel like I'll have these good memories to look back on for years to come. They're great memories of my first ever night in the game, not knowing how it all worked. My first time talking with friends about these old YouTubers, and my first time making Minecraft videos. My time playing the game, even when it wasn't really cool to do so. The 10-year anniversary of the game, and now vocalizing my opinions on this wonderful game. But the parts of the game that leave the biggest impression are the beginning and the end, and I already briefly went over how rewarding Minecraft's early game is, but how is the ending? Well, before you can even fight the final boss, the Ender Dragon, and final is in quotations, you need to find the portal to the end. Yeah, find. Unlike the Nether portal, you can't make this one. You have to find it by throwing Eyes of Ender. They'll point you towards the stronghold. Just follow the eye. I mentioned the stronghold earlier, and probably played a clip or two showcasing it, but this is the process of finding said stronghold. The stronghold has multiple rooms, prison cells, libraries, hallways, and of course the portal room. Here you must place enough eyes to fill in all 12 frames, and then the portal will open up for you. From here, the dragon fight is easily understood but deceptively hard. There are pillars all around the map, and depending on your version, they may either be scattered or in a ring, and they may or may not have iron bars around them, sometimes at least. On these pillars are end crystals that heal a dragon when she gets close. You have many ways to break them, just keep in mind they explode like a charged creeper, a more dangerous version of the creeper, by multiple magnitudes when broken. You can pillar up and punch them, shoot them with a bow, or just outright ignore them in one cycle of dragon beds. Like in the Nether, beds explode in the end. This fight is a brilliant balance of boss brutality that bolsters strategy while bashing a big bad. In simpler terms, this boss is really fun to master, and when you do master it, she becomes a joke. It takes skill either way, but once you've got a rhythm going, you can pull off some impressive stuff. Before we move on, I just want to say I'm proud of myself. That was only my second take. That was insane. A lot of people say that the dragon is underwhelming, and I can understand where they're coming from. I think that it's important to consider that those people who are typically saying that are people who fight her over and over. It's a fight that's easy to learn and hard to master. When she dies, she unleashes an explosion of a crap ton of EXP, and it's a pretty climactic way to end the game, as wonderful as this. Too bad it isn't the end, though. Sure, Minecraft is endless either way, but 1.9 brought exclusive content to the end after you beat the Ender Dragon. While the end used to be a singular island, now we have the Outer End Islands, home to chorus plants. These plants teleport you when they're eaten, and they can be smelted to make a few various things, including purpur. It's what's used in the new End City structures. These structures are modular, so most of the time they're unique when they're generated. While the loot here is great, with all of them essentially being treasure bastions, even though these came first, what we're really after is the Elytra and the End Ship, but apparently they can just only half generate. Yeah, this is the hidden downside to Minecraft's generation system. It will occasionally screw up. Sometimes it's funny, like the grass patches in my Bedrock World's mushroom biome. Sometimes it's cool things, like the Farlands, but other times it causes structures to only half spawn, meaning you miss out on loot. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen, and when it does happen, it's incredibly infuriating and causes a trip to something like an End City to just be ruined. Especially in the End City's case, too, since the End is the only place, barring world generation tomfoolery, that's incredibly punishing since you can die to the void. Similar to lava, if you die, your stuff is gone, but unlike with lava, there's no way of mitigating it like netherite stuff can. There's no ledges for it to fall onto, and netherite stuff doesn't burn. Furthermore, it's very easy to fall off here. Let me speak from past experience and say that losing your stuff here is very demoralizing. So when you find a half-generated end ship like I did, it's easy to just want to give up. I didn't though, and the Elytra is very worth it. It's flight and survival. Minecarts and boats have become extremely obsolete as long as you've got rockets, and the speed you can reach allows you to explore at high speeds. Even without rockets, the ability to keep momentum by flying up and down in an arc is great, and all you need to do is get a good amount of height to pull it off. The Elytra is debated to have too much versatility because it makes those other modes of transport obsolete. But you know what, I think it's a good thing. It's a worthwhile reward for the end, and is worth rushing to the dragon for. Aside from the dragon, there is also the Wither. The Wither is spawned by making a pillar of soul sand in the shape of a T and putting 3 Wither skulls on top. It will then summon, explode, and it will start shooting Wither skulls at you. This fight is incredibly difficult, but it's, again, very simple. Its first phase is when you can hit it with pretty much anything, but a bow is preferred. It will shoot Wither skulls at you while it charges at you. These skulls will explode, and will inflict the Wither effect. This also happens when you're hit by a Wither skeleton. It will drain hearts like poison, but unlike poison, it can actually kill you. Its second phase is when it gets this glowing force field-like thing around it, and that's when you switch to your sword. When it's killed, it drops a nether star, which can be used to make a beacon. These will give you permanent potion effects when you're in the beacon's radius. It's very much worth it. And unlike with the dragon, you can actually cheese the Wither by spawning under the end portal frame. It's kind of funny, actually. You can fight it before the dragon, but you're going to want really good gear for it, especially in Bedrock Edition, where it spawns Wither skeletons and has like a crap ton more health. So, getting an Elytra is worth it to try and find that gear. There's so much I haven't brought up, man. Redstone, the intricacies of building, debug blocks like command blocks and debug sticks and servers. Oh yeah, servers, I should at least mention that. If you've been around my channel long enough, I'm sure you've heard me talk about Ottcraft before. It's what the kids today are calling an SMP, or survival multiplayer. Basically a server that's focused on survival mode. This is one that's whitelisted, meaning only certain people can join, and it's specifically for people with autism. I found out about it through my mom, who found out about it through Facebook or something. I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of plugins that go into that sort of thing, and I'm not the person to ask about it. Even ones like og.network.net, which don't have commands like /back or protection plugins, require a lot of work to maintain. If that's the case, I can't imagine what Hypixel has to go through. They have hundreds of servers for a crap ton of Minecraft minigames like QuakeCraft, Sky Wars, and Build Battle, as well as a full-blown MMORPG in the form of Hypixel Skyblock. Maybe I'll revisit this topic and talk about it with Windcraft at a later date, and hopefully one about Artcraft again in the future. I miss making content about that server. Now there's a whole other side to Minecraft, that being creative mode. All that stuff about managing your inventory and finding loot is worthless since you have access to, well, anything you want. It's basically God mode with an inventory editor built in. I personally don't find creative mode as rewarding, but it is certainly an amazing tool to test out designs in, and is the best way to build adventure maps. These are interactive builds that people use to tell stories within Minecraft. My favorite of which being Biomes Mansion by Hypixel, the player, not the server. This is probably the best example of a Minecraft adventure map. It has custom shops and NPCs, as well as a custom resource pack. I won't get too into it because it is worth talking about on its own. Is it good video? Mods are in a similar vein. Content packs or tweaks to Minecraft design or gameplay. The most interesting ones to talk about are like RLCraft, a mod pack that changes a Minecraft into a totally different game. RLCraft in particular contains new struggles and mobs, as well as new structures. You need to drink and mind your temperature, as well as the new and absolutely terrifying mobs that the pack adds. The structures here are also pretty grandiose, which add to the more survival RPG-like feeling that the game now has. Again, I could make an entire video about RLCraft and the Minecraft mods as a whole. Let me know if you want to see any of these videos, by the way. I'm happy to make them. I think that that's finally it, though. I think I've covered all that I really want to say about Minecraft for a bit. While I love making content on a variety of games, from hack and slash to RPGs to even movies, from covering games as old as the 80s till just 2 years ago, from Let's Play to review to even music, I've never forgotten my roots. I've never forgotten what it took to get this far. Sure, other channels have grown several magnitudes faster than me, but I'm fine just making content for now, even if it isn't always easy to do. This year is plenty example of that. I will always be grateful to have this as an outlet for my creative vision, for my general silliness. I recently hit 300 subscribers, and while my growth has been slow, it's been steady. I can't wait to see what the future holds. And with that, that's all I've got. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, guys. Here's to another 10 years.